Yes everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another track breakdown for you. This is of my latest remix, 4x4 by Travis Scott. I was really happy with this remix, did it in a couple of days, and it was all about the bass line. So let's jump into the project. So as I mentioned in the intro, this one was all about the bass line. Now I wanted to go for a rolling bass line just because I found this really cool patch on Serum, and I sort of just went with it and developed it from there. So this is what the bass line's looking like. Pretty simple beat really. Again, we've kept to the scale of the acapella. Just a quick note, I've turned all mastering off whilst I go through the project because otherwise it just crunches the computer out completely. But that's just making it louder and more real. The sounds are all still here. Oh, I love the roll on this. And now how I've got that sort of bend in it. I've got this automation here, which is a Serum macro for this patch. You can see that that's making it sort of bend. And over the whole track, you can see that bass line is just constantly automating. So it gives it a bit of movement, keeps it more dynamic. We've hit that with a ton of processing, EQ, shaper box for sidechain, and I've used multi-band, so I'm only sidechaining the stuff that's going to clash with the kick. I found that drum bus is a really good Ableton preset for giving bass saturation, even though it's for drum bus. I always put this on my bass lines and just turn down the wet and dry to like 20%. Another shaper box giving drive on the 16th, which is really good. Auto filter to cut out unnecessary frequency, and yeah, just more and more processing as I've progressed the track. So if we listen to that with the kick, this is what the low end is sounding like. And remember, tech house music generally, dance floor tunes, if your low end is good, your track's probably going to be okay. If your low end isn't great, you need to work on it. I always try and get the low end right early on in the project, and I changed this kick about 3 times as well. Oh, come on. And like I said, I changed the kick about 3 times. That's something you just have to sort of adjust on as you go through the project and see if you like the kick and whatnot. So again, if we take a look at the master chaining, right, turn on a quick waveform, okay, and we look at the waveform for the kick and the bass. This gives us a good idea of how it's looking. As you can see, if I turn the bass off, we get the kick by itself. And what we want is when the bass is hitting to not be distorting that kick too much and make sure that the bass is quieter than the kick, because you always want the kick to be the loudest thing. So when I add the bass back in, you can see the bass is filling in the gaps and it's quieter than the kick and it's not distorting the kick too much, which means there's not too much frequency clash. And that's done by the multi-band sidechaining, which I've had to sort of figure out as I go. But as you can see, the low end looks pretty good. The waveform is nice looking. So that's a good time for me to move on. And what I did is I took the same hook through the build up as well. And I thought what I'd do is something similar to my baby remix, that little baby tune I did like a year and a bit ago, where we start it off really reverby, and this has got like nothing playing in it. And then we start bringing it down so people know it. And then just as we're going to drop, we push it miles away again. So we're messing around with the spacing and the dynamics of it to keep it interesting before the drop. And I've got this little classic Travis Scott, as like a hook, and it's got a weird like bend on the delay in time, which gives it that cool like whoop sound. Anyway, vocals was nothing special on this track really. I was actually spent a lot of time on the drums. So this is the drum groove. It's actually a really simple drum groove. I brought in, so I started with hi-hats, which I always do, on the 0.3. I actually layered 2 hats for this track. I tend to layer 2 hats at the moment. One which is like the main hat, and I tend to layer a background hat, which is a bit more wide and a bit more washy, just to give it some dynamic. Again, 2 claps, a front and a back clap, and then just some very generic top loops, tech house top loops, which I've sort of tightened up, removed groove from, so it's nice and straight. And I found this called clicker noise, which I did quite late in the project, which I actually quite liked in the end. And then we've got classic snare rolls, snare build here. Very simple stuff. The drum groove, very basic. I think the one thing that I've added that's a bit different, I haven't used in a while, I brought this in from an older project, is like a snare groove. So that's what we're playing, 3 separate snares. If you want to take a look at the patterns, it's like this. I'll leave all the patterns on the screen for a second so you can pause and copy the pattern if you want. But when you play all three, and you play different types of snares, so I've got a really tight one here, long one, and then like, that one's the main hitting one. That's the one that comes out in the mix the most. The drum groove, really simple, and then some basic atmosphere, just some drones, string, classic, and this vinyl texture I thought was quite nice in the vocal part where there was not a lot playing. It just gave it a little bit of something. I still call that a play. Then all this stuff here is just effects, stuff from Splice. I made a white noise thing myself in Serum. Really simple. If I just drag it across and show you. Yeah, so I've just got noise turned on here on the left. Noise, bright white. And then in the matrix, what I've done is I've routed the LFO to the filter cutoff. And that's what we're modulating with automation, as you can see here. Some other little cool dynamic parts. I got this big 808 in the break. Some extra drum grooves in and around the break just to sort of keep it interesting. But that's basically it. It's a very simple track. Oh, I guess I got this as well. I got this called Acid Shot, which does the classic house, tech house. It breaks up the groove, keeps it interesting. And that's it. I messed around with some vocal delays and stuff. So I took this shot from the tune and then I bounced out the delay so I could have control of the delay separate to the sound that I got the delay from. Made this background vocal, which I like to do, just something, and then, you know, just to keep it interesting. Last thing to talk about would be the lead build up. I felt like the track, it needed something in the build up that wasn't the bass to keep it interesting with the vocals, so I wrote this lead build. Again, really simple, nothing complicated, and it's from an Evolution of Sounds preset pack, which I've sort of modified a little bit and manipulated to get what I want from it. Starts off nice and slow in the back, builds up. So when we talk about arrangement, I guess arrangement is probably the key to what people care about with remixes. This one, like I said, I took the hook. I knew I had the hook. I built the drop, so I would have built an 8-bar. If we loop this, is what I would have built first. This is where I start. Make sure the bass and the kick are sounding good with the vocal that I found. Add in some drums. And then from there, obviously, you build a second 8, which gives you your first 16. And what I tend to do, I tend to build 16 in the drop, and instead of then going to the B section, I'll figure out the build. Because what a lot of people struggle with making music when you're new, especially with remixes as well, is you can make a cool 8-bar loop, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a good tune. So as soon as you've got your 8-bar, 16-bar loop, you instantly need to make a build. Because if you don't make a build up, you don't progress the tune, you might get stuck in the 8-bar loop and you'll never make a song. And I'm sure lots of you watching have got hundreds of projects of just loops that never become songs because you never make builds. The build will let you know if it's actually a good idea. You know, if it can flow, it's a good idea. So yeah, I'll make that 8 or that 16 and then I'll go backwards and do a build up. It'll be very simple to start. I didn't have all of this when I made the project to begin with, but I'll drag some drum loops out and just try and come up with a build up. Then we go into the breakdown. And in this one, I knew that I had that extra 8 of vocal. So I was like, I'm going to make that the break and go into a build up so we're not making a super long extended track that goes on for too long. And I hit that nice 808 in there just to give a bit of difference. I'm working on a track at the moment with someone, it's a collab, and he sent me back a version of the project that had 808 hits in the break, and I was like, that is dope, so I put it in this track as well. Watch for that one, because when we release that, oh my, that could be crazy, that tune. Anyway, so yeah, I used the build up, replicate the first one, copy, paste in again, and then I tried to come up with a different dynamic change for the second drop. In this case, I thought, again, it's all about the kick and the bass on this track, so let's just remove everything from the first 4 bars, except the vocal and the kick and the bass. Simple. Get a little horn there, which sits nicely in the background. Again, I took out a lot of the kick, as you can see here, because I shaped my kick, so if I turn this off, it's a lot longer than what it sounds like. So because I've shaped the kick, if I go and do a double like this, right, here, if I just create a double, it won't play the second one because the shaper box is essentially muting the double kick because of where it's playing on every quarter note, etc. So there's two workarounds to this. Either you can automate the shaper box to turn off every time the double kick's about to hit. That's a lot of automation unnecessarily. If you're happy with the kick and you want to commit to that kick, an easier way to do it is to resample it, like I've done here, and shape a double kick version. And then also you can control it down, and then also you can turn it down and control the dynamic of it against the original kick. Notice how that one is significantly quieter than the main kick, but you still hear it in the track. So people know it's not the main kick, but you can hear it in the space. That's what it's all about. And I've also got a reverb kick here. Mixing and mastering, you can't make a bad track good, but you can make a good track great. And I actually did a whole video on mastering an entire track with just stock Ableton plugins. If you're interested in that, top right corner. But yeah, quick talk here. Simple stuff really. We've got a Pro Q3, which is just cutting off some side. I didn't like the way it was cutting off the mids in this, so I removed it. Let's loop up a bit of the drop here. And look at this. So what we've got in here is short reverb, long reverb, distortion, and a compressor. Again, they're all working very slightly in the background. That just gives it an overall realness. Saturn 2, classic. I saw this in a tutorial and I use it all the time. Faster Master O on a 70% mix. Don't always just keep this on a 100% mix because that's what the preset is. Listen to how much of the mastering you want in your track because you might not want it all. So yeah, I'm using sort of like 70%. I'm hitting black box for air, which is like it's a model of a real analog box. One thing I'm doing more in tracks at the moment, especially stuff that's lacking a little bit in the high end, put some drive on. And again, this is only driving the top 5,000 kilohertz of the track at 50% on a 12% mix. So it's just getting a little bit of shine to the top. You don't really hear it, but you'll hear it overall. And like I said, I've got the utility, which is making it quieter in the build-up. And then BX limiter is just a limiter to make it loud for the track. We take another look at the waveform. And that is my entire breakdown of how I made the 4x4 remix. It is available on SoundCloud. There's also free downloads available, so go and download it, go and play it in your sets. Let me know what you think. If there's other tracks you want me to break down, let me know. I'm making lots of videos, lots of content, lots of music. So yeah, keep an eye out on the channel, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.